want you to turn to the top of page 341. Okay? And here we have quadratic inequalities. They look like quadratic equations, but instead of having it equal to 0, you have either less than or greater than, or less than or equal or greater than or equal sign. And for solving them, they're going to be very similar to solving quadratic equations, with a slight difference. So what we're going to do is, you have space right beside this. I'm going to get you to write this. I'm going to get you to write this right beside how to solve. So we have the steps. A quadratic inequality. There we go. How to solve a quadratic inequality. Just like a quadratic equation. Right? Whenever we were solving a quadratic equation, we made one side equal to 0. And then we're going to actually pretend it's equal to 0. So up till this point, it's exactly like chapter 3. And when you're solving like a quadratic equation, you have the 3 methods. You could use factoring, you could use completing the square, or you could use the quadratic formula. You have a choice of which one you want to use. Usually they'll factor. There'll be some times that you might have to use quadratic formula, but almost always they're ones that can be factored. Then this is where it'll get a little bit different. So we'll see what this means. And then finally we just yes.
What does it say between which and R?
Which intervals? Let me write that nicely.
Oh, well, that's what gets me.
Interval or set notation, you remember that? Oh my goodness.
It's like the funny brackets.
Square brackets, round brackets, with interval notation. Oh my goodness.
That was like our worst.
That was the one that we all got like 60.
Yeah.
All right, so good. We'll it reviews a bunch of grade 10 stuff. Because in grade 10 you did interval and set notation with domain and range.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'll give you an idea of what this looks like before we do the steps. Okay? So you can just sort of think about it. So if we were thinking about this, and I gave you x squared minus 9 is less than 0. Can you tell me a number? Okay, I'll make it super easy for you. Super easy. I want you to tell me a number that works, which is true, or one that doesn't work, false. Doesn't work. But if I start with Lucas and he picks any number, he's going to be right. He just has to tell me where it goes, though. Because it's either going to be, you pick a number, it's going to be true or it's going to be false. So what number are you going to try first?
I'm gonna try 30.
30. All right. If x is 30 and you plug it in, will that be less than 0?
No.
No. You just correctly found a number that goes here. Okay? So pick another number. 2. Will it work? If you plug in 2, will it be less than 0? Yes. So we're going to put 2 over there. All right, Adam, pick a number.
10.
10. Will it work or will it not work?
Not really.
It will not work. You want to pick 3?
Yeah.
Or you want to pick 3 for somebody else? Make them make the answer. Okay, look, you pick 3.
Yeah.
Is it going to work?
No.
Is it less than 0? No, it equals. If there was a line there, we'd put it for true. But since there's not, we put it here.
So,
All right. So far, you found one number that works. -2. Is it going to work? Yes. Ooh. Now we have 2 numbers that work. 1. Is 1 going to work? Yes. What are all the numbers that work? Anything less than 3. Oh, okay. Between 3 and -3, in interval notation it would look like this. In set notation, you see that anything in between those two is going to work.
yes.
Okay? Now you could, if you guessed and checked like we did, you'll eventually, what are the key points are the 3 and the -3. So according to the steps that I wrote out here, it says make one side equal to 0 and solve like it's an equation. So if over here I actually do the steps in purple, I would pretend it equals 0. Could you solve this? What would you do? There's a couple options you could do. How many people would just move the 9 over? Like that? And then when you square root both sides, do you remember the plus or minus?
Yeah.
Okay. That is step 1 and 2. Make one side equal to 0 and solve like a quadratic equation using whatever method you want. We pretended it was equal to 0. Now this is where the stuff becomes new. Right? We guessed and checked, but by solving finds out where it's equal to 0. Those were the key points. Step 3 says, draw a number line with your solutions and use test points to see which intervals are true. So if I draw a number line, and I put on my number line -3 and 3, and we're going to find out sometimes we're going to put dots here and fill them in, and sometimes we're going to put dots and not fill them in. We're going to leave these ones not filled in because can it equal 3? No. We fill it in if it can equal it. But because it's just a less than sign, we're going to put open circles there. You already did a test point. So this separates your number line into 3 different sections. Numbers less than -3, numbers between -3 and 3, and numbers bigger than 3. What happened every time you tried something bigger than 3? It didn't work. So I'm going to put an F here for false. What happened for everything that you tried between -3 and 3? It's true. We never tried anything here, so we probably should. Let's try minus something less than -3. What do you want to try? -5 or -4. If you plug in -5, that'll be 25 minus 9. It is false, so then we would also put a false there. And this section that's true, you would then write your answer either in interval notation for your solution, or in set notation. Oops, no equal sign.
Wait, can we choose, or are you going to state in the question?
Usually you get to choose.
Oh,
So in a multiple choice, if it gave you the solution, it could give it to you in either way, right? So you'd have to know both. They're not that crazy hard.
Well, the second was a bit confusing.
Well, if it's between two things,
You're back to the day.
between two things, it's always written this way.
Yeah.
I'll write out it both ways for the first little bit, just so we get used to
That
it.
makes it way easier to understand. It's just that means it's in between that and that.
Yeah.
Dude, I did not learn that way. We didn't learn that way. I don't even know what we learned. We just didn't know.
Okay, well there you go. Now that way's super easy, right?
Yeah.
Anytime it's in the middle like that, and you always have to use less than signs, because -3 is less than x, and x is less than 3 means that x is in between those two.
Oh my god.
All
We should
right.
have had Mr. Jar for grade 10. I bet we would have been way better.
I don't know. Okay, so we can also think about this with graphs. If you use chapter 4 and you thought about this as a graph, you see that your vertex would be at 0, -9. It would be like the x squared graph got moved down 9 units. And if I graphed it quickly, here's 0, -9, I'll graph it in blue. It would look like this. When it's asking where is it less than 0, it's like asking, because this is equal to the y, when are my y values less than 0? Can you see on the graph? It's right here. Between -3 and 3. Because the solutions are the x-intercepts. So all of our units sort of like, oh, everything comes together. The solutions are our x-intercepts. So this is my -3 and 3. And I can see from the graph, obviously this is the part that's true. And these two parts are going to be false. So we can either use a graph or we can use test points to figure this out. All right. Something to highlight. So here they show the graphs on the next page. I want to just highlight this sentence here because I like the wording. The x-intercepts of the graph are called the critical values. Those are the points that you put on your number line. And maybe you want to make a note. Because on our number line, sometimes we're going to use open circles. And when they have the equal sign, sometimes we're going to use closed circles. So I said we would do one example. So let's go to question number 1. Solve this quadratic inequality. So step 1, we make one side equal to 0. And then we temporarily make it equal to 0 just to solve. Almost all of these will factor nicely. So I'm going to guess it's going to factor nicely. Well, if it factors nicely, do you see that your only option is 3x and x for the first one? I love factoring this one. Because look at my last number. It's a 1. Only option is 1 and 1. Really, the only thing you have to think about is outside and inside with plus or minus to see if it works. I need a 2. Can you see my outside has to be +3, my inside -1? Like that? Like we only had to figure out the plus or minus for factoring and double check it. And so we get two answers, x is equal to -1 and x is equal to 1/3. Now we draw our number line. -1 is obviously less than 1/3, so it doesn't matter where you put them, just make sure they're in order. And since the original equation was a less than sign, we draw open circles at the points. Okay? Now we have to do test. We either have to test things Like, if you tried minus 10, is it going to work, or is it not going to work? Okay? It's false. And you can either, sometimes I like to use the factor part to try the minus 10. Can you see that if you try minus 10, this is going to be minus 31. I'm just going to put a negative sign to remember that. This is going to be minus 9. And a negative times a negative is going to be positive. Is a positive number going to be less than 0? No. So I know this section is false. What number would you choose between -1 and 1/3?
Negative.
There's a really obvious number you should choose.
0.
0, because it makes your mental math really easy. If you plug in 0, is 0 less than 1? True. Right?
So did we do that or graph it?
Or we could graph it. So I'm going to show the graphing after, right? So, bigger than 1/3, is it going to work? Like try 1,000? Plug it in, is it going to be less than 1? Absolutely not. This is going to be false as well. If you thought about graphing it, right? If you graph, like if I took the place where it's equal to 0, okay? If I wanted to draw a quick graph, well, I already know my x-intercepts are at -1 and 1/3. Which way does this graph open? You don't even need to know the vertex. Can you see that the only place that it's going to be less than 0 and true is in between? That's why that section is true. So your solution now, it is easier if you can graph it. You're going to get, like, you could get inequalities higher up level, which aren't parabolas. Right? So then the test points might be nice. Anyway, solution, you would write it in round brackets from -1 to 1/3. Wow.
Where did you get the take-home quiz?
The take-home quiz is right here. Make sure you grab it on your way out.
Alright then.
Oh wait, I'll finish writing the solutions here. This is enough on these.
I'm telling every
-1/3 to 1/3,
single
or
to get Mr.
you
Yard.
could write it like this.